QuickBooks Online Tools for Tax Accountants. This is me, right? And that's our youngest. Anyway, I'm based in Tucson, Arizona. Thank you for that, Joe. So I'm a longtime QuickBooks Pro advisor. You know, kind of grew up on the desktop and been using QBO since '09, but I still support both platforms. I'm certified in QBO and, like I said, a longtime desktop Pro advisor as well, and I've been with Intuit since 2004. I also do a weekly show with Stacy Kildall called the QBO Show. Formerly it was Radio Free QuickBooks Show with Don Brolin for many years. We do that since 2010. So that's me, and this is what we're going to be covering. Now, for those, though I don't actually give out a CPE certificate, you can actually get CPE, I think, just with a couple slides I put in here. And that's just, I have to say a summary, you know. So upon completion of this topic, you should be able to understand key benefits and value of QBO, QuickBooks Online Accountant. I am going to show a few things with QuickBooks Online, of course, as well. We're going to look at accountant tools. You know, when you're in the client file, we'll look at some basic navigation tips, and then what I think are the key accountant tools, including when you're getting that trial balance report or the profit and loss or balance sheet, and you're exporting that to Excel to use with your tax program, you know, how you go do that. And then, and of course, I won't cover how you integrate it with your tax software. I don't know what you're using, but a lot of them have, you know, a bridge to Excel. So I'll just get you as far as getting the trial balance in Excel. And then you could apply the same to the profit and loss and balance sheet, because some people like to use those for the tax returns because it's just more akin to detail, but some people like the debit and credit columns. And I'll let you, I don't have a dog in that fight. And then finally, I'm going to show the integration with our ProConnect Tax Online. When you're in a client QBO file from QBOA, we do connect to our Tax Online software. Not with Lacert or Pro Series, that would still be just Excel. But with ProConnect Tax Online, or formerly called Intuit Tax Online, some of you might be using that or have used it in the past for a few of their files. We do give you like 7 free returns to test it out. So I'll be showcasing that, and then we will back end into looking at what you can do throughout the year in QBO. We'll probably just look at bank feeds and rules, because that's a great way to automate and get the data entry into QBO. Of course, we'll be looking at reporting and customizing reports. So after doing some research for this webinar series, right, for the Intuit BDM firm base, which would be you, and I'm sure your BDMs or Intuit account managers have talked to you about this, you know, the overall benefit of QBO working in the cloud as opposed to desktop. That's kind of my premise, you know, no file transfer, no QuickBooks versioning, and I have a few quotes from friends in the industry that I met with briefly over the phone who are doing taxes as well. And why, you know, they have desktop clients and they have QBO clients. So what do they like about QuickBooks Online? So irrespective of assuming books are clean, if you're using QBO, you will know if the books are clean well in advance of performing the return. Where in desktop, it's more common to spend more time cleaning it up. Why? It's because you're not touching the desktop file as often as QBO. With QBO, you're just logging into that single ledger, right, and seeing the work they're doing. And I'll show you some of the tools you can use to help troubleshoot, as opposed to getting a backup portable or accountant's copy file, you know, 3 or 4 times a year, or for some of your clients, the one time, sometime in December or January, February. In desktop, you're more likely to see errors to fix as you've not been in the file throughout the year. So that's kind of like the premise. The common theme I was gleaning from my meetings with practitioners, I'm more comfortable setting a closing date without a password, as I'm going to see the changes right from Client Dash in QBOA. That's the other thing. I can show you like change to close books, and hopefully you guys are using the closing date and password anyway. We have a similar thing in QBO. And then finally, it's just the same theme, right? Working together with clients often throughout the year, bank feeds. This particular accountant, she's reconciling faster. She gets to the data sooner. She's actually doing monthly engagements or even quarterly, so she's just able to stay on top of the books. So by the time the tax year comes along, there's not so much cleanup. Right? Maybe she's just reviewing just a month to 3 months worth, whereas she knows 3/4 of the year is fine from the last time her staff was in there. Okay, so that's the experience, and I'm sure you guys would see that as well. And a couple slides just on the growth of QuickBooks Online. We are at 1.6 to 1.7 million subscriptions. Mostly are in the U.S., but we're, of course, global. And what this just means is that even if you're not a fan of QBO, it's important at this time to find a couple people in the firm that are, because you're going to start wanting a piece of this pie, right? People are moving over, and we're seeing about 70% of new users coming to Intuit that don't have any QuickBooks at all. They're choosing QBO over desktop, and we're getting a lot of people converting, you know, from like Pro over to QBO, even Premier. So those clients lead to tax revenue as well. find a couple of people in the firm to get certified in QBO. That's going to be my encouragement to you. Set up a QuickBooks Online account, which we'll be looking at soon, because that's the firm portal into QBO and managing your QBO clients. And just get ready, right? We're going to continue to churn out desktop, but there's a shift already happening, and then there's going to be just more so, by 2020 for sure. And then some basic, what are the advantages? Again, no data transfer of files. I talked about accountants copy and backup and portable, and there's no need to pay hosting fees, right? You're not hosting QuickBooks. Improved collaboration. You'll see that with the transaction messaging. I'll be showing you that in about 20 minutes or so, 25 minutes, and how you can collaborate with your clients just at the transaction level with them. If you have high-speed internet access, right, we're accessible anywhere. And you can do a lot of stuff on the iPad just natively logging into Chrome and going to qbo.intuit.com. The actual apps, they don't have as many features as like going into the full website, but you could log in, natively on the pad and see the stuff. But, you're going to access it anywhere. I'm covering more insights. I'll get to that when we get to reporting, but that just means I don't have to like restore a backup or send a client journal entries or something just to see the latest in the reports. You're going to be able to log in and see that. Always up to date. There's no maintenance releases to install. It's not like QBO version 2017 R7, right? It's just QuickBooks Online. And the firm has a distinct platform or portal, a launching pad, if you will, to manage QBO and their staff with this QBO work. And so it's like a consolidated client list. And VeriSign secured, the security will go questions on it. We're basically like an enormous bank, similar type 128-bit encryption security. But 20+% of the U.S. GDP goes to our servers. Everything from our tax offerings, right? TurboTax will serve Pro Series, PTO, payroll, QuickBooks payments, so our merchant services, and QBO. So and Mint as well, right? So we just got a lot up there. Take it very seriously. We have multiple data centers throughout the land, right? And they're all like machine gun, redundancy checks, and things like that. This looks like QBOA. It's mine. I'm going to be going in here now because this is where you're going to start as a firm. And if you don't have a QuickBooks Online accountant yet, and just for the acronyms, because we're all about acronyms, right? QBOA, that's QuickBooks Online Accountant. And QBO, that's QuickBooks Online. Those are going to be the main two I discussed today. And then PTO is ProConnect Tax Online, formerly called Intuit Tax Online. We recently had a branding change over on the tax side of the business, right? So PTO. But this is where you're going to see all your list of QBO clients you're going to work on and access from, and this is where you're going to invite all your staff, so you're working off the same list. So we're going to look at that. I'm going to start from there, and then we're also, the first place we're going to line on is in QBOA and the team involvement, okay, and how you can just bring in tax staff in for just a few months of the year and then make them inactive for the rest and only give them access to the clients they need access to. So you can do some restriction as well. So we'll look at that as well. And then this is what we're going to cover. So starting QBOA, client dashboard, team involvement. There's more to QBOA in this, but we'll save that for another one. This is mostly just for, tax accountants. What do you really need to know to get started working with QBO? I'll show some basic access points and navigation tips when you're in a QBO file, and then we'll go through the key accountant tools. You'll recognize one of them if you use, or two of them if you use the client data review tool on the desktop. So we'll look at that. We'll go to the trial balance tool itself, not just the report, but the actual tool. It's like a working trial balance page within the client file, and that's where you go and integrate with the Tax Online product. And we'll also be hitting reports three times and customizing. I'm going to focus mainly on the profit and loss balance sheet and trial balance, show you how to switch to the cash basis and export to Excel. We'll do a quick PTO integration. I'm not going to be doing any training within PTO. Okay, I'm on the QuickBooks side, but I can show you where you go, and you'll see the Lacert diagnostics and things like that. Because PTO has the same data engine as Lacert, right? Well known for its diagnostics. And then, assuming we have time, we'll spend just 5-6 minutes on bank feeds, just so you can kind of see what you would be doing throughout the year, and how the data comes in, and it's just a little more automated. Now, and I will be talking about transaction messaging. That's exciting. We'll get to that. So, I am in Google Chrome. It looks just like the screenshot. Looking at Adams Gill Gibson, that is the name of the firm. Okay, but instead of having all my staff have their own QBOA, a QuickBooks Online accountant with their own list, we have all our clients listed here. We got 13 active clients currently, right? So we support both desktop and QBO, of course, still, but we're just moving a lot more over to QBO. And then for the tax side or anybody who's working on QuickBooks, over here on the left, I have Clients, Team, Pro, Advisor. If I click on Team, this is the staff that I have and that are actually involved in working with the QBO clients. We all work off the same list, but we all log in with our own respective emails. Okay, and I'll go ahead and show Eric as an example. All right, so you would invite each one of your staff once you sign up for QBOA, and I can give you the URL at the end of where you'd go to sign up. But my guess is if you have any QBO clients at all, or even one pro advisor within the firm, you probably already have a QBOA. Even if you don't know it, you probably do. And then so work with your IM and BDM on, where they can help you consolidate into one QuickBooks Online accountant, and we can do a webinar for the firm, just some core stuff on QBO, et cetera, that's beyond just this tax stuff. So work with your IM or BDM for that. We're happy to help. Okay, so all I did with Eric is I put in his first and last name email, right, at intuit.com. Most of them are working for the firm. And then in firm administration and books, I can give him varying degrees of access. If he's just coming in for tax and he's only accessing like 5, 6, 10 of the 13 clients, I would probably set him up as basic because he doesn't need to add QBO subscriptions and he doesn't need to add other staff or edit their records or anything like that. All I want him when he comes in is to see a list of clients, and he can leverage a Pro Advisor. So if he wants to take advantage of the free Pro Advisor membership for QBO and get certified, he can. But that's about it, and he'll see the clients listed there. Because you have this Client Access tab where you can go through and check off the clients that I want, Eric to be able to access. And he's actually going to look at Katie's company, Larry's Landscaping, and then he has, I'm taking him off the payroll one because that's not actually a tax client, Beautiful Landscapes. We are doing the 1120 for them, as well as the pet supplies for sure. That's an 1120 as well. So he's going to be working on those clients. When I save that, it'll update his record. When he logs in, he will see 4 clients. He'll be coming to the same QBOA, right? It'll say Adams Guild Gibson LLC, but instead of Clay's clients, because I'm in as me, it'll say Eric's clients, and it'll have 4 in parentheses. As an example, if I go into this QBOA right here, hold on here, she, my daughter, so she'll do some stuff and help out as well. She has access to 2 of the clients, which I think is a lot for an 11-year-old, but I'm pretty confident in her bank reconciliation skills and things like that and making journal entries. So she will prep, and then the rest will take it for tax. But this is what she would see. Now, she has a little more opportunity to add clients and team members, but Eric would just have clients and Pro Advisor. Right? Now, we do give you a free firm file for the firm. This is something that you would not use for your client, and you would only use the Your Books file when you're ready to use the Your Books file, when you have a firm file. So the QBOA, we give you a free QBO Plus file for you. Most people leave it blank till they're ready to roll with it, and you're keeping your books in desktop. That's fine. You convert when you're ready. Don't use it as a playground. There is a sample file available. Under the gear icon, you can go to the sample company, or just Google, do a Google search. How I get there is just QBO sample file. It's a landscaping file. It has a mock payroll and bank feed, and you can just kind of use it for training and stuff. Just know that it resets itself every time. So don't use the Your Books file for a playground. You're going to wait on that. That's going to be your real file one day. And then you'll notice is you saw on the slide where I can start to prioritize what clients I want to work on. Now, you're just kind of doing this for taxes, so you probably already know. And depending who you are and how many clients your firm administrator gave you, if you're here today, you'll see however many clients he gave to you to see, and you're just going to go into each one, as we will. We're going to be working with the general product store, small-based business of ours, and I just click the QB icon to get in there, or I can click the drop-down up at the top and go in that way. Either way. I like hovering over the QB meatball, as we call it, because it tells me who the last person is in there, and that was me as I was prepping today. And what level of QBO there is, because there's 3 levels, right? You got Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus. Most of your clients will be on Essentials and Plus. Plus is going to be most akin to Pro. You have things like class tracking and inventory and things like that. In bookkeeping, see, we're going to surface up some data so I can see, transactions. This is the bank feed. Unaccepted transactions, they've yet to been added to the register, right? So these clients I probably want to go into. And see, the beauty of this is I don't have to call them or email them and get a portable file sent to me or an accountant's copy. I can just go in and do some bank rec work or some bank feed work or apply some bank rules, which I'll show you kind of at the end, because I do believe the bank feed, pulling in for the credit card and the checking account, is just critical to the success, and it's a backbone of QBO. and how do you set up those rules? And because you guys are going to be tracking the trends. But for tax stuff, you'll see some payroll, but then you'll have this tax column over here. And see, I've already done a review here in the trial balance, and I've already done an 1120 for Planet Pet Supplies. I'll probably go review that now. I can just drill in. It'll open PTO if I click on that link. So we're going to surface up some data just about status, really, but most of the actual file return status is going to, in particular the e-file center, is going to be in actually in PTO, in the ProConnect Tax Online that we integrate with. Okay. Talk to your IM and BDMs about adding clients and wholesale blending and that. That's not really for today, or we can do a webinar for your firm. Let's go into the file here that I've prepped, General Product Store. Just going to click on the QB icon, and it brings me in. Now, if you guys have been working with QBO for a while, you probably noticed the color schematic change we've done over the last 10 days, right? Kind of took away all the dark blue. But all the access points are in the same place, except we did move the plus sign from the middle, right in the center, over to the right, near the gear icon. So if you've never really been inside of QBO before, the access points are the left-hand panel, which will, some clients will have this dashboard, banking, sales expense, reports, and the chart of accounts is down here with reconcile and accounting. Some of your clients will have home, customer, vendor, transactions, and there's a bunch of stuff in transactions like bank feeds and chart of accounts and sales and expenses, reports, and taxes. So either way, you have a left-hand panel. We're all going to have this kind of dashboard with cards on it, just giving you information about the file, and you can drill in for reporting from here or there, or the graph or whatever, charts and graphs. I'll get back to the toolbox because that's important. I'm probably going to start there once I'm done with this little navigation tip and trick on open windows. So you have the left-hand panel. Then you got, remember, the plus sign, if you're used to it, you're like, it was in the middle, where'd it go? Okay, it's over on the right, next in between search and gear icon. I believe we did that just so that the gear icon will be a little more visible. And it's kind of clustered. Not many programs have something in the dead center middle anyway. So the plus sign are going to be transactions. One of the ways to get here. Journal entry for one, right? Bank deposit, and then you got your customer-related transactions, vendor, etc. The gear icon are going to be your operational things. Settings, manage users for, this is where a client would go to invite you if they already have QBO and they're new to the firm. Your items list, recurring transactions, and reconcile, budgeting. So the more operational activity would be under the gear icon, the plus sign would be transactions. I do want to go into accountant settings for a second because there's some key things from a tax perspective we want to cover. And, the entity type. Right? So you can choose, this is an 1120S file, but you can choose from these. Right? And this is helpful when you're pushing it over to PTO. It's not really going to impact how it goes to Excel or anything like that, or how you're going to bring it in, but these are the forms, entity types supported with QuickBooks Online. Right? Of course, you can choose no entity and still have something, a report, and still track all this info and have it for a different type of form in a software. It doesn't have to be just these particular forms, but these are obviously the most popular. So you have that. That's important. If you go down to the Advanced tab in Accountant Settings, this would be your accounting method. I know with tax here, you're mostly doing cash basis, and I'll show that at the report period because I think throughout the year they're probably doing accrual, and then you can I'll show you how to get the cash basis on the P&L balance sheet or trial balance. But here's where I would choose the first month of my fiscal year, first month of the income tax year, which is obviously going to match that. Here's where you can set a closing date and password if you want when you're done with the review, so that, like in desktop, hopefully you're doing that too, as your staff are working on the file throughout the year, and particularly with QBO, you're accessing it monthly or quarterly or whatever, but it's way easier to access it. Slap a close date on there and password so they don't void and delete stuff. Now I'm going to show you a report that can find out that info as well, but this closing date password is very helpful. It won't allow them to void or delete something without a password, and then they contact you, and then you can ask them what really they're trying to do. So yeah, company type, tax form is there as well, and then the other thing, account numbers, if you want them on. So those are the main kind of accounting type preferences, and you'll find that under the gear icon, because gear icon is operational setting type stuff, preference type stuff, right? Go to accountant settings, okay? Plus sign, transactional data, and then you have the left-hand panel. Now, the first thing I like to do before we look at kind of open windows, then we'll go through some accounting tools, the briefcase. Right? I can drop in and out of files as I see fit. I don't have to log out and log back in or whatever. Right? I just go to the other file. Then there's this hamburger icon which closes the left-hand panel, and you might do that when you have a report. Maybe we'll do that. But there's an accountant toolbox And this is where we consolidated some tools we think you would most typically use on an engagement with your client. Now, the first four, the client doesn't have. Two of these are from the Client Data Review module within QuickBooks Accountant Edition on the desktop, and then you have a trial balance, which I'm going to show you in a bit. How else can you close the books here? Reconcile, go to journal entry. Now, the first thing I like to do when I come into a client file is go to Report Tools, because in Report Tools I can set the default date range. So we're going to be looking at this year to date. I know, just pretend it's like through the 31st, right? Because in a week or 10 days I will be in 17. I'll be able to look back. But I'm choosing the default date range, so any report or tool I open should open up to this year to date, and the basis will be cash. So set that first, and it's kind of like the old Accountant Home for QBOA back in the day, but some of you might recognize this, but if not, no worries. It's just called Report Tools, and you'll find it under the briefcase, your Accountant Toolbox, top kind of left of the client file when you're in from QBOA. And I can see some bank balances and things like that. So once I have that set, let's go to Reports. Now, there's many ways to get to reports. I usually click on Reports, and I look at Accountant Reports, because these are going to have, this is where your trial balance will be, and your general ledger, and of course, the P&L and comparatives and the balance sheet. And the P&L balance sheet will also be under All Reports, Business Overview, which is akin to Company Financial and Desktop, right? So I have my P&L here. I can click on this and open it up. It's looking at this year to date. It's cash, and here's my report. I could go ahead and do some periods to compare. You might do prior year, which would probably be a good one, which you can do to that, and then maybe do a percent change. There's that as well, and maybe that's what you use. Now, how do I also get a balance sheet up in the trial balance all in the same file, but I don't want to keep hitting the back button? A couple options, right? If you're using Chrome or Internet Explorer, though I think Chrome's a little better, and of course Firefox would be supported as well, you can right-click on the tab you're on and duplicate, and that's going to bring up the same exact, within the same file, it's going to bring up the same report I'm on and should inherit the customizations I did. Yeah, okay. And then now I can go to Reports and then go to the balance sheet. And then balance sheet, then I could do a comparative too. And then I can right-click, duplicate, or if you're not sure, click on the briefcase, that toolbox, the second option from the bottom, New Window. It's going to do the same thing. It's going to duplicate the tab. So now I can go here and go to, Accountant Reports. Another way to get to Accountant Reports would be also under the briefcase and Accountant Reports. And now I can go to the trial balance. Okay, and you just choose your appropriate date range and the basis you want. And typically that report tool should pick it up. But so now I have my debit and credits for looking through, probably it's not year to date. You guys would do this year, right? So let's just pretend I'm going through, it's January, we're looking back. So now I have these balances. So I have multiple tabs, and I can left click and peel it off and put it on another monitor, right? So now I have the trial balance over here and the balance sheet over there. And you can do that just by left clicking and grabbing the tab, and you can move them around and change the order, et cetera, what have you, right? I can also do this with transactions. So maybe I'm going to make some, ledger type journal entry adjustments for prepaid insurance or expense or something like that, depreciation, whatever. And you can go do the journal entry by clicking the plus sign, right, because that's where transactions are, and then right-click, open a new tab. So now I have 4 windows open in the same file. The transactions will inherit the actual name of the transaction, so here's the journal entry, right, and by the way, this little hourglass, this is like recent history, so I'm going to go back to this journal entry I did. I know, you're like, he must have broke something. If you're using desktop, you can't do multiple AR AP per journal entry, but in QBO you can. It doesn't have that same restriction. Just remember that. And because I'm in a client QBO file from QBOA, there's this adjusting journal entry checkbox, which will segregate my journal entries, into the adjusting journal entry report, which is a report we pulled over from QuickBooks Accountant Edition for desktop. So I have that ability as well to make it an adjusting journal entry. And that's how you have these multiple tabs open, right? So you got multiple ARAP per journal entry. I can make an adjusting journal entry, right? And you could do a reversal too, and you could set up a recurring or memorized reversing journal entry on 1/1/17 to then back out the depreciation of the prepaid, or however you guys do that. And then I have the reports open. The other way to do it is to download the Windows app, which I have open. It's another way to do it. It's a utility installed on your machine, and you probably see ads for it when you go to log into QBO. On the login screen on the left, it just says download now. Anybody that has a QBO login, if you're part of a firm, QBOA, whatever, you can download this app. And what's different about it is it has these drop-down menus. So I can just, it's installed, so you can stay signed in, which is nice. And everything signs up, everything opens up in its own window, So I got a journal entry open there. I'll just go to that last one I was in. That's fine. And then, go to reports. I got a P&L open. I got a balance sheet open. I could open up the trial balance too. I could go over here to my reports and go to accountant reports and open up the trial balance, or go to the report list, look at all reports here in its own window, and then go to accountant reports and open up the trial balance. Either way, you'd have all these windows open, and some people just like that. It's more familiar to them from the desktop. And you can see that and manage it in your system tray. See how I mouse over? Here's my open window list. Or I can do Alt-Tab. But if I want to go to the journal entry, I go here. If I want to go to the other report, I go, click on here. Or I can do Alt-Tab. Now I'm on that report. So that's the Windows app. And it's installed. Just my little quick QB icon right here, right there, as opposed to my Premier, Accountant Edition, or Enterprise. Right? So, and it's just live data feed right to the data on our servers for QBO. So, if you're really used to desktop, download and use the Windows app. If you're used to that more, that's great. I'm going to close these windows now, but and we'll move back to the browser, which is my preference. Multiple tabs, the adjusting journal entry, we talked about that, and how to have multiple windows. Now the trial balance, let me just show you quickly, and then we'll dive into more like cleanup tools. But while I'm on it, I might as well go over, showed you how to customize a little bit, but how you export it out, right, to Excel. So you have these icons here in this candy bar. You got the little gear icon where I can make some changes. You can click customize up here if I want to filter or look at rows or columns, or if I want to only show, non-zero account rows, then that's fine. And then I can look at the header, footer, do some adjusting. The more detailed the report, like if I have a P&L up, I'll show you some customization on that. If I just right-click duplicate, just so we can kind of hammer that one down in the browser, how you get multiple windows. And then I go to reports, and if I just go to my profit and loss, right, this year to date, cash basis. But again, I can customize this way. General, rows, do my comparison if I want, this way as well. And then you have the total only. If I want to filter by particular accounts or something, I know for taxes you're not really going to be doing much of this, but just want to show you how you customize the report using the Customize tab. And then so that you have it, like say you're going to just getting the reports ready and you're actually going to do the return in 2 or 3 weeks, because the IRS isn't even open right now for that, to e-file, I think. This thing is still a ways out. So I would save the customization, and this is going to be, for tax year 17, I'm going to come back to this. You're going to use this one or whatever you want to designate it as. And I'm going to add it to a group. This will be like, tax year reports. Because I'm basically, if you're used to desktop, I'm memorizing a report at this point, right? I can even share it with other company admins or all users. It'll show up in this kind of my custom reports list. So when I save this, now when I go to reports, I have my custom reports. So I'll have all my tax year reports listed here, and I can just go ahead and run it. And it's going to run it based on the date range here. Okay? So this is my quote-unquote memorized report list. And the nice thing about this is, not that you would do this, but I could even schedule the group of these reports and send it, to people maybe that don't have access to the file, but I can just send it to them, email, or I can set up a way to auto-send. I think it's probably beyond what you're doing during tax season, though, so we won't spend much time there. There's also a whole, how do you create report packages from reports with a cover letter and table of contents and your accountant summary. There's that, too. We support that as well. But I think just customizing it and saving your customizations, the reports, is going to be helpful when you come back into this file later. Okay, and then exporting to Excel, right? So I got the trial balance. Go back to that. You can export to Excel or PDF. And most tax programs have a bridge to Excel. 1 second, please. So exporting to Excel, it's just going to export it to Excel. I don't know how to say that in any better way. And then I have my trial balance. You can tweak it from here using your Excel mastery skills. Use the bridge to get into the tax software you use. I think it goes into Pro Series this way. We'll start into the trial balance utility, although you still have to map to the fields. And then, of course, I'll show you the PTO integration after we go through some of the cleanup tools. But that's how you export to Excel. All right, how about tools? Tools you can actually use to clean up the file. And again, that's going to be under the gear icon. So we've looked at reporting, we're exporting to Excel. We'll go to PTO in like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, right? And then we'll go back to bank feeds and we'll finish up. But a key tools, I think, other than setting the default date range, you have this reclassify transactions. We'll get to the trial balance, but the reclassify transaction, this allows me to batch reclassify transactions that were miscoded. And again, because of my report tools, I've from January through 12/31/2016 on a cash basis, look through the accounts. A lot of people come in here just to look at the transactions and how they've coded them throughout the year. A lot of these probably would show up if I had accrual set to accrual. But I've looked miscellaneous. They got over 1550 in miscellaneous. So these expenses and checks, because they probably didn't know where to put it. I mean, at least they tagged a class. That's kind of cool. I showed them how to do that. They're hitting the wrong account because they're not sure. So I can take all of these and move them to the appropriate account, whether it's a utility account or something like that. And that's, what I would reclassify to, without having to go through every single check or expense, and recode it, click Save and Close with the warning, are you sure you want to change, right? So we have this tool in desktop as well, so it's called the Reclassify Transactions tool. So now they're all put into the appropriate account. And a lot of people use it to review the activity in the P&L and in the balance sheet accounts for the year, but you can only batch reclassify non-item-based, or I should say account-based transactions. If you want to do some class tracking to differentiate reports or filter reports like the P&L, then the item-based transactions you can reclassify for at the class level. Okay, so that's one tool I would definitely encourage to help clean up. You also have a voided deleted transaction report. So I can see who, voided these transactions, and I can view the history to see, on December 22nd at 8:21 they voided it, right? So I can have this up in one tab, and then I can have the actual form up in the other to recreate it or whatever, or at least I have some information on it. So void deleted transaction report is helpful. Before we get to the trial balance tool, because that's what's going to go to PTO, I wanted to mention something really important. Now, what about transactions? A great segue where you just have questions on. You might be going in the audit trail on desktop or drilling on a report, and you're just like, they had a bill for $4,000 to office supplies, which is a lot for office supplies. Probably what happened, do you think? They probably bought a piece of equipment or a fixed asset or something. So how do you communicate with your client instead of having to create an email or two with several lists of transactions and their numbers, and then the client gets the email and eventually they go into the desktop file and looks up the particular transaction numbers as a find. They probably ping you to figure out how to do a find. Anyways, they find them and then they answer through email. So we tried to solve that in desktop with a tool called Client Collaborator, but that's no longer available. But in QBO it is alive and well, this transaction messaging. So I have this $4,000 bill for Office Depot. Right. I actually found out that 2,500 of it was something for a fixed asset. It had nothing to do with office supplies. So it was originally 4,000, and this is what happened. When I got to the 4,000, I sent a message. I came down here and I sent a message. I chose Clayton, my client, and said, did you happen to buy any equipment? And then what happened is Clayton, when he logged in, he sees this little message in the upper right. See this one over the message icon? And he can click on it. And it says, it says the B, and I know the bill, the transaction, and I know that QB Clay, that's actually my accountant. Sorry, they're the same name. I should really do a better job at differentiating these two people. And they sent a recent message so I can see, and that's going to bring me to the transaction. In QBO, I'm going to get an email alert, right, showing me, hey, Woody answered your reply, you can find out more here. So it's not like an instant message. This is for the next time I'm actually going into the client QBO file. They just said, I did part of that. So the message to the accountant was, Woody said, yeah, this part was for a laptop. I think it cost $2,500. And then the accountant says, thanks, I updated it appropriately. So now I know that it was updated, and I'm in the client QBO file as Woody now. I go to the bill and I say, oh, cool, because I just had $4,000 in office supplies. So now it's split off appropriately between a fixed asset account and I have the expense account. And we did that conversation at the transaction level. And it's going to happen at most of your transactions that you see, they're already in the client file. So if I X out of this one and go to, I had another bill or something for this particular vendor, or it could be sales or something, but typically it's like I'm seeing a bill or a check. Once the transaction is created, then let's go to advanced search here, and you'll see it. So we're going to look at checks. Great way to do searching, by the way, and you can search by payee or multiple thing. We'll just look at some checks. So I can go to a check that just looks really big or wrong or something like that they might have done, and then you'll see this little icon up here in the upper right, right? This is how you initiate it. And you're like, wait a minute, wasn't this state board equalization? Okay, so probably paying off some sales tax as well. That looks a little high. Do I need to make an adjustment? So I just choose, the user and say, hey, this sales tax, amount looks high. Do I need to make adjustment, or is this a prepayment or something like that? When you post it, Woody's going to get an email, and when he goes into the file, or next time he goes into the file, right, you're going to see another icon, another one, right? And here's a check, right, that I just did. And it's not meant to be instant messaging, but it's just a way to communicate at the transaction level without having to use an email. And now I can, reply, yes, because he's not really doing much of the sales tax. All right, that's okay, though, because he's a cool client and stuff. All right, so anyway, transaction messaging, that would be the other thing. Now, let's look at the other tool, the main tool that you'll go to for like a working trial balance, and it's just called trial balance. And then we'll look at the PTO integration and then bank feeds and rules, and then we'll be done. Should be done certainly by the top of the hour, if not probably a little early. I know it's holiday week, so again, thank you all for taking time on it today. So the trial balance, so working trial balance, and I'm looking back at tax year 2016 for my general product store. A couple things about it. It's going to keep a running list of transactions and what's done to them since you start this review. And you're reviewing kind of just the prior period, which is going to be January 1st through December 31st, or in this case, the tax year for 2016. I'm going to have a list of all the accounts that have balances in them for 15 or 16. The rest, you won't see them, right, all the way down. Right, happy accounts to sad ones. And then I have ending balance, 2015, so that we've done the return in PTO or LaCert or ProSeries or something, right? And then I have the unadjusted balance. It hasn't really been reviewed, but this is what I have for 16 of the activity. And then the activity over under by amount or percent. Also, I can make some adjusting journal entries, right? Remember we were in the adjusting journal entry window, and I can drill down and see, because it's not just me, but let's say Joe's one of my staff, he's into this file too, and he might have done the journal entry, and I'd see his name as well. And so I can drill down and actually look at the journal entry itself. And remember, this is going to be an adjusting journal entry, right? That box is checked because I have that cool report. Just a quick tangent. Accountant reports, I have an adjusting journal entry report, and you might even use this to attach at your year-end work. Adjusting journal entries right here. Right? Accountants only. Client wouldn't see that. So I have that. You can make adjustments just by clicking on it. I can see the other transactions that were created since I did the review, and then I have the adjusted balance, and I have this work paper section. So I can put a note. I can attach the last statement I have. And attach the last statement I have for this, right, on the checking account line. And when I'm done reviewing the checking account, done the bank rec, which is also, you can find reconcile under the briefcase, right? You might be doing some of that, or the last reconciliation for sure. It's also under the gear icon. But I can kind of check off these accounts as I review them. And it says, mark them as complete, and it'll show who actually marked them. So if you have different staff working in the trial balance itself on the same client. And then you can freeze the workspace. If this will not prevent others from not being able to do stuff in the file. It's just going to lock down the working trial balance, and I can come back and resume it. I can archive to a zip. I can also go to Excel if I want this working trial balance to go in Excel. But my contention is that you're just going to use the trial balance report, right? Not the adjusted trial balance report. You should use the trial balance, because all of this activity in the journal entries, they're impacting the books. They're impacting that trial balance report. And then when you're ready for tax, I just click View Tax Return. And there's a little video there to see how the trial balance works. I'm giving you kind of a high level of it, but that's it. You're doing that. And when I click View Tax Return, this is going to start the tax return. It opens up ProConnect Tax Online in a separate tab. It adds the company info, if it wasn't there already. And then it's going to update the account balances on the 1120 or 1120S form. That's right, it's 1120S. So you click Continue. So right now I'm in kind of review mode, right? Here's my return. These are the balances come over. And you'll see right away, I'm in the Check Return tab. And in PTO, there's 4 workflow tabs. It's the profile, your input the return, check the return, and file it, right? And obviously I'm not going to be able to e-file until I go through these 29 critical diagnostics in red. This is where the Lacert data engine starts to kick in, right? So I'm going to go through, and a lot of it's basic info I'm just missing or didn't have in the QBO file. But I can go to 1125A from here. I can e-file the 8879-S. So everything that's typical, worksheets, the letter, what have you, and I can go to the input return if I want to go and input the return into the field itself. I can do that. And my list of clients are here on the left. And of course, PTO integrates with Intuit Link, so if you're using that to work with your client and collaborate with them to get like a PDF or document sent, with a W-2 sent, so you can download it and work in it, etc., then there'd be that. So in my list of clients, and a lot of these are similar clients from QuickBooks Online Accountant that I use PTO for. And that's really the integration. You're just not going to be doing a lot of the actual data entry. A lot of that's coming in from the integration from QBO. But it's not just that your client could do this. This is really the actual, you have to be in the client file from QBOA. So that's the integration between QuickBooks Online and PTO. Now you can also open PTO, it's the last option under the briefcase, but to actually push the balances over, you're going to do it from the working trial balance, so that trial balance tool. So to summarize, trial balance tool, reclassify transactions, void deleted transactions, journal entries, and the fact that they have an adjusting flag, the ability to set the default date range with report tools. Of course, you'll need to reconcile sometimes, and that's just to show you quickly, right? Very similar to what it looks like in desktop, and you might have to do that. So if I'm just doing the 31st ending balance here, you click OK, you put in a real ending balance, right? Checks and payments, deposits, and other credits. And then you have your quick link to the accountant reports. And I showed you how you customize those as well as saving those customizations so that, you know, if you're just coming in doing a quick review using the trial balance tool and just getting your reports ready, or maybe a staff's doing that, create a group, right, and then save the ones that you're going to use under there so that you can just run them, right, and then you'll have it. And of course, you know, you're not really probably comparing to the previous year. I'm sure you're just going to use a straight P&L for this year and on a cash basis, but that's up to you. Okay, and you customize up here. And, you know, the detailed reporting, we'll have content on that. We got a video site. You can watch other videos. We'll move into bank feeds now, but just, you know, you're going to be able to customize more the more detail-oriented report is, but for taxes, you're basically using more summary reports, so you have those options to customize. Fair enough. We're going to go into banking, or in some of your clients, the left-hand panel might say transactions banking. Either way, you're going to be brought in here, and I just wanted to mention that throughout the year, you can connect, you know, or your client can, their checking account or their credit card they're using for the business and download the feed into QuickBooks Online. Simple Start Essentials Plus, even our self-employed product, which is great for like your Schedule C contractors. You can even add them to your QBOA, right? And it's like $5 a month or something, or $10 a month, and it's just for a bank feed download, no transactions, but it's for that type of client. You might have those type of clients that don't need transactional activity or a lot of reporting, but you want to get the data from the financial institution so you can get a tax summary or tax detail or P&L to use for tax season. So check out self-employed as well. That's out there as well, and it's also online. But Simple Start Essentials and Plus, they're all going to connect to the bank or the credit card. You have as many as you need. And it's a direct connection. It's going to come in every night once you connect to the account. And, you know, I have some stuff from Express. I got some personal expenses that I can actually probably exclude. And then, you know, within the bank card itself, I have for review. This is stuff not yet in the register, what's in QuickBooks and what I've excluded that I'm just not going to have. We're going to recognize the stuff that you've created a rule for, okay, for batch entry, for quick entry. That's the goal, and I'll go over rules in a second, but I can accept those in. Some of those are a transfer because it's an American Express download for that. But if you go back to all, now I have 18 left to review. So if you look at the predictable expenses that they use, like, we'll say Staples is a great one for office supplies, right? They do have, something on their credit card or checking account every single month for this. So why sit here, drill in, and choose the payee and the account? Why not set a rule for QBO to do that? And you can do that. This is what you'll do throughout the year as you're setting up the bank feed, and because you're able to just log in to work in these QBO clients, and it's not a hassle of file transfer or what year you're using a desktop, etc. Are you on the latest release? All that stuff is moot because you're in their ledger. Single ledger in the cloud, you're logging in from QBOA. So because of that, you're probably going to go in the client file more often. And then you can track the bank feed area. And as you do that, you'll notice specific things they do every month, every week. So start to create a rule. Click on the drop-down arrow next to File Upload, Manage Rules. I have one for Applebee's, American Express. Let's do another one for Staples. Just name the rule. For money out from any bank or credit card account, when a transaction meets the following criteria, bank text says Staples. A lot of times that comes in that way, and a lot of times the description says Staples. That's usually the payee name I've seen a lot. And you can even do lines for amount. If you want to do, if it's over this amount, it can go to this account, etc. This is like throughout the year stuff to get the data in, just so the tax season's easier and you get all the data you need. Payee is going to be Staples. Let me see if I already have Staples. I don't on my vendor list, but I can add that on the fly. You can add list elements on the fly just like in desktop, and we will call this, office supplies. You can do a class or a location if you like. I can even check the box to have it automatically added to the books after the rules applied. But, know your client. In this case, we're going to review it. But anyway, stuff that you don't need to review, just check it off, and then QBO is going to apply the rule and then put it in the register for you. And that's kind of the automation of data entry that the industry is going, and we're just following along right with it, right? So you're more in review mode, more in analysis mode, advisory mode, as opposed to data entry, compliance. So see, Staples was applied, right? We recognize those two. I can check them off. And so then that's how the rules work, right? And you can connect to really any different types of accounts, right? Just Bank of America, maybe it's a credit card, just know your PIN and password. And then if the feed comes down automatically, you can also upload files too, if you want. So you're getting the data in. There's also recurring transactions. There's QuickBooks payments with credit card processing, all this way to help automate the workflow and the data entry so that when you're coming in monthly or quarterly, particularly over the next couple months into the file, creating those reports, using the working trial balance, and then sending it over to ProConnect Tax Online or sending it to Excel to integrate with the tax software that you're using. That's really kind of the goal of this, to show you how you can do that in an easier fashion with QuickBooks Online, because you're really just logging in from QBOA. I click on QBO account and go back to where we started, where my staff and I are collaborating and managing the work with our QBO clients. And even those that mostly are doing tax, I'm going to just invite them as a part of the team and make them active for 4 or 5 months of the year, and then make them inactive for the rest of the year, and just divvy up the clients of what ones they can access.